but this is hour one. So that means that Tyler's here. And where would you like to start? Would you like to start with other things around Major League Soccer? Would you like to start about the Euros? Would you like to start about Atlanta United now that you've had a couple days to think about what's been going on?
I don't know how much more I want to think about Atlanta United, that match last weekend.
It's perfectly fine. I mean, probably the best thing that we can, do to move the story forward, advance it, is that it was an opportunity for the younger players and, a guy like Noah Cobb that we know is on that track to first team minutes and first team exposure. It was another one of those environments where you could get Noah Cobb the chance to get those minutes and get him the exposure that you're looking for because he is that talented an individual.
Yeah, I watched this game and the defense, I know that's always going to be the buzzword, but it wasn't awful. Noah Cobb, I actually thought did pretty well. There were some mistakes, but there were some mistakes by everybody. The attack, though, was just toothless. The attack it wasn't there. It didn't have any cohesiveness to it. And I think that was the biggest thing out of this entire game it was just, we talk about the chemistry. We've talked about the chemistry all season, and that's been the other big buzzword, right?
You're hitting buzzwords out of the blocks.
I know. I'm on my second cup already this morning, and I'm on it.
What is the mug, by the way? I forget.
The mug this morning is, it's like one of those tin mugs or whatever, the metal ones.
So you're out there at the campfire making sure that everything is drowned.
Might be something else in here this morning. I don't know.
We're singing songs at the campfire, and Tyler might have something a little brown, not a little softer brown than traditionally what might be in that mug. So I understand where you're going. Please continue.
Maybe. Great Wolf Lodge over in LaGrange.
Okay. I'm down with OPP. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So
you hit buzzwords. You hit buzzwords again this morning.
Yes, buzzwords, chemistry. The chemistry just didn't seem like it was there, which, you can talk about chemistry all day long, but you take 5 guys, 6 guys out of that lineup.
Yeah.
It's not going to be easy. It doesn't matter what kind of training you're doing on the training ground. It just doesn't work that way. And, knock on wood, you hope this is the worst experience that you had with your backups, because you're going to have this more this year. Maybe a little less so. RIP to Greece.
That conversation in the locker room between two individuals on the front line. I don't know what that conversation is going to be like. It's just, but regardless, it puts the team in a position now where you have to, the young guys have to come out and perform. I mean, the talent's there. We know the talent's there. And then, you go back to the second and third striker conversation. It's like, all right, well, at least you've got Giakoumakis now. At least you've got a guy that can make something out of nothing. And you may or may not have Saba, considering Saba didn't get the call up this time around.
Yep.
Does the Georgian national team sit there and say, we're going to dance with what we brung as they go into the Euros?
Yep.
And I mean, on the right-hand side, you look, if Saba does go, then, you have Edwin Mosqueda running around at 90 miles an hour, and you do that for 60 minutes. And then maybe you have Tyler on the right-hand side. You might move Brooks up, because that's happened in the past. So there are alternatives there on the right.
Yeah. And this is not at all a knock on the backup strikers, which is a cursed position at Atlanta United. But I am much more comfortable with losing Saba and having Mosquera, Wolf, insert other winger here, because we have so many. And that's not a knock on Saba either. But I feel better about that, than I do losing Giakoumakis and having to have Jamal Tiara or Daniel Rios.
You're right. And Daniel Rios, once again, got his first couple of minutes, and it was just, okay, Daniel, go. And once Daniel gets oriented into what's going on, I think he becomes more comfortable as another option up top, and he brings you a different option than you have with Jamal. Jamal, the more of the basketball analogy, more of the power forward type, where Daniel Rios is more your shooting guard. So you have those alternatives available to you in that position when you go to the bench for someone other than Gigi.
Yeah, and at some point you just have to hope that one of them breaks the curse. Because the only one that came close to breaking the curse was Dom Dwyer, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I mean, I think you can understand to a degree why he wasn't brought back. I still think maybe his style of play wasn't exactly what Pineda wanted, which is fine.
And I think that he also wanted to be closer to his children. And
100%.
And as a dad, you completely get that.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And I'll never fault him for that. And I think people, they're like, oh, why did this happen? Well, you have to look at family, because ultimately that's what is the most important.
Mm-hmm.
And, but yeah, I mean, he was the one that had somewhat of a successful tenure behind the first striker. And, it's not the end of the world for Jamal Tiare. I mean, this is the first time he's really had a cohesive, like, real start, and he's actually got significant time. Did he make the most of it? Probably not. But I hope that bringing in Daniel Rios will help kind of force him to not settle for just being the second. I hope that he's not okay with being the second, because he doesn't want to be the third either. And I hope that it pushes both of them to try to even push Jakob for time if it comes down to when he needs a break. You don't want to force Giacomakis if you don't have to. It would be nice, knowing his injury history, to be able to kind of let him back off a little bit if you can. But right now, you don't have that luxury.
And at the same time, I think that our conversation and the fact that you have this early in the year where you can sit there and see, okay, how do things integrate with the depth of the roster that's there when they have to integrate with the first starting 11, as we have that in our brains, that you look at, once again, you look at how things blend, and it is situational. And it's like, okay, you had 7 guys that you're used to having on your roster out for either injury or international duty. And it is a learning experience. It is a chance for Atlanta United to sit there and say, okay, how do these pieces fit? How do we learn to continue to make these pieces fit later on in the year when the Euros pop up, when we have injuries, these kinds of things. So I chalked this one up to a learning experience and seeing how folks come together in a situation like this. And you take it and go. And and one other element that I did want to talk about with you is Brad Gazan, because the Polar Bear had some sick, and I mean that in the most optimistic way possible, as the kids say these days. He had some sick moments against Toronto where he was coming up with saves all over the place.
Yeah, and we're a few games in now, and I think all of the talk over the past year and a half has more or less ceased, or at least should have ceased. There's nothing wrong with Brad right now in that starting goalkeeper spot. And I think it's a mixture of having a guy like Josh Cohen, who is good, who is hungry, and who is going to take that spot if he's given the opportunity.
Right.
And Brad is the kind of guy that feeds off of that. But also, I've said it, I think I've said it on here, I've said it on our show. It's just, the guy was injured, right? Like, he was really badly injured.
And it was an Achilles, and it ain't something that you can fix quick.
Right. And he came back so quickly from that, like almost supernaturally quick. And then he, gets up to New York City last year on the baseball field and messes up his knee. And then he's back instantly after that.
And dude rolled into him.
Yeah.
And got no card. No foul, got no card, and Brad had to go through that too.
And Brad played the rest of that match, because that happened right before halftime. And then, so we know he wants to be on the field. He's at the tail end of his career. That's not a secret, and that's not a knock. But he's going to milk every moment for everything it's worth. And I'm not mad at that at all. But I think it was easy to look back at results last year and think, man, his shot stopping ability is just not great. Well, I mean, if my knee was hanging on by a thread and I just fixed my Achilles with duct tape, it probably wouldn't be that great for any of us either. But he had this break, he had the off season, and he just looks better. He looks, I keep saying, springy and spry. That's what he looks like to me. He just looks like he's got some youthfulness back in his legs. And we already know his positioning typically is pretty good. He's got the experience. We know that. And I think now that he's had the moment to rest and get everything, his confidence back into his legs. He looks good, and I'm not mad at what he's brought at all, even in an 0-2 loss. Like, it is what it is. Again, it's not his fault. He was coming up with some saves left and right. That game could have been way worse than it was.
Oh, man. I mean, the point blank one where it's to camera left as we're watching, and so the one that's point blank where he literally is there, and he is the Lone Ranger.
Yep.
And the shot is there, and I think he hits it twice. He's inside his 6. I think he's about 2 yards off of the line. He hits it twice and powers it over the bar.
Yep.
And it's those kinds of moments where you sit there and go, dude was on his head. You know, we can use every goalie analogy you want. He was a warlock. He was standing on his head. Whatever.
I like the warlock.
Well, I mean, you can't call him a witch.
Yeah, that's true.
Therefore, you have to call him a warlock. But but there are some things. There are things for Atlanta United to learn. There are things for us to learn about Atlanta United as this process goes, because like I said, you're going to have cup competitions. You're going to, you're going to be in Open Cup. You're going to have Leagues Cup. You're going to have Euros. You're going to have injuries. And to have a moment like this early in the year, I think is beneficial. Yes. Is it suboptimal that you came out of there with no points? Absolutely. But, you learn from this kind of a thing and you go forward.
It also wasn't 6-1 Columbus last year either.
True. Yes, so. That is absolutely true. Tyler hanging out with us for another 10 minutes at ATL Pilgrim, at Scarves, and the letter N Spikes on the 280 character app. Tyler joins us every Wednesday here on Wall Pass Wednesday, because God knows what we want to talk about with Tyler, and God knows what we want to talk about on a Wall Pass Wednesday, whatever's on the table. We do have some Twitch pitching questions. And Abby asks, do you think MLS needs to break during international breaks?
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. I was writing my article over on Scarves and Spikes, my first reaction kind of article for the moment the final whistle hit
Get the plug.
against Toronto.
There you go, big guy.
My final reaction, and it was maybe a little hotter than I meant it, but I don't think it's that spicy of a take. It's just, the way MLS's schedule works, like the teams that pay money to get international players, they inevitably get punished in times like this. And it sucks. It sucks. It's been like this for a long time, but it's not that difficult to just move some things around a little bit. Now, granted, this year was extremely full.
Yes.
Extremely full. So I get that maybe.
I think next year is just as full, and then you head into a World Cup year too.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, the World Cup year is going to be tough.
Bananas Foster, sir. Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, to answer the question simply, yes. I mean, I think they need to take a break. I turned on my TV that morning, not thinking about it at all, because I was so ready for the Atlanta game. And I was like, I got the day off up until the match, and we're not going to the bins. And I was like, I'm going to watch some Premier League.
Nope.
You
got Championship, League One, and League Two, brother. You got that.
Yep. I ended up watching. I think it was Man City and Man U, the women's match that morning.
WSL. Okay.
Yep.
I'm down with that. So,
which was awesome, but it just. The European mind can't comprehend. Like, it's just such a weird thing, Yes. So they should take a break, figure out a way, whether you got to stretch it out. I don't know, whatever you got to do to make it work. It's just frustrating.
Yep. And then Ricky asks, so are we missing Bart Sleesh and likely Saba for the Euros? I would say yes on Sleesh. Don't know about Saba, considering what happened yesterday. And do you deal with the poker hand that you have there? Did you have Saba sit there and go, bro, take a seat? And if we make the Euros, then we call you up. Saba's the wild card in this. This is what we don't know.
Yeah. I think if I had to put money on it, I wouldn't put a lot of money on it. But if I had to put money on it, I would say Saba does get called up, because he has been a pretty consistent guy for them, over the past, however long, couple of years.
Yeah.
I think he gets called back up, because I just don't know that you want to go into such an important competition missing that kind of experience.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just let guys have a break. Now, this was a weird one because it was such an important qualifier.
Right. And that's why I'm like, I don't know.
It's tough, But I'm kind of leaning towards yes, probably he misses it. And then, of course, Slish, absolutely.
Yeah. And then what that means in the midfield, once again, is that's why you have Dax McCarty here. And that's why you would, in theory, have Jay Fortune here as well. So those absences at that position, specifically the 6, can be addressed with other folks. So as we sit here and play roster Jenga when we get to the summer in the calendar. So I think that particular position, you have allowances that you can make with a combination of, say, Jay and Dax to fill that 90 minutes where you bring in Dax and you go to the bullpen with 20 to go and sit there and it's like, all right, finish it out for me. Chicago's coming up, and the issue that I foresee with Chicago, well, actually it's 2 now. One is a negative if you are a fan of the Chicago Fire, and the other is a positive if you are a fan of the Chicago Fire. Hugo Kuipers seems to be a pretty decent play so far in MLS Fantasy, and if you haven't joined the Fantasy League here at SDH, go to the Jason Wright Agency Facebook page, Jason Wright with a W, or Jason Wright with a WAGEN on the 280-character app. Hugo Kuipers so far seems to be putting the ball in the back of the net, and Chicago's playing DJ Crazy Pants sometimes when it's out there offensively. And Kuipers is definitely somebody you got to spot shadow.
Yeah. It's so funny because I was just about to bring this up, but I think Niall hit it in the pitch first. You don't have to worry about the wind. There's no windy goals.
It is a climate controlled environment inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
Yep. But, I never know with Chicago. They are such a up and down team, like always. Not just, this year they've been relatively okay, but they're just, you never know what you're going to get out of them. But you do know that they've never won in Atlanta, which you have going for you. So, I think, of course, you're going to be missing Stian, which still sucks.
At least a couple of weeks, maybe a month. Don't know. Rehab can take it one way or the other, but yeah.
Yeah. So I do feel like this defense still is more than capable of handling Mr. Kuipers, but it's more about the transition from them up to the front that I'm concerned about. And I think that was what was missing so much in this last match. And of course, you're going to have guys coming back and everything. So I'm still confident about it. I just think after this Toronto match, you turn this into more of a quote unquote must win, which all your home matches should be must win anyway.
Yeah.
But it would have been nice to kind of pad some things a little bit by getting at least a point up in Toronto. So, yes, they're going to go into it. They're going to scout him. They're going to look at him, and I think they're going to handle him pretty well.
William Morthland, the mayor pro tem of the city of Roswell, Post 5 council member, who's going to discuss the Justin Papadakis press conference, USLHQ, coming up in a couple of minutes. And then my last thought with you has to do with the injuries that they have at left back, where we saw Andrew Gutman's injury early in the season, and you had to have Chase Gasper, who was a subbed off because of injury. We don't know the injury update on Gasper, but that makes you very thin at left back, which in the Atlanta United attack up the right-hand side, I say that is probably where you're looking at making the most of your opportunities early on and running them into the ground up your attacking right, which means field day for Brooks and for Saba up the right-hand side, going up against a very thin left back issue for the Chicago Fire.
Yeah, I think you bring in, obviously you start Saba, and then
you run Edwin Mosquera for 30 minutes. Then you run
Edwin Mosquera nonstop. And what I want to see a lot of is, because they're going to pick on that right side. They have to, absolutely have to. So you're going to see Atlanta's left back, depending on who's starting with rest and all that kind of stuff. But let's, Caleb Wiley.
Sure.
Whoever that is, I want to see long balls over the top. I want to see them bypassing that midfield, because if Atlanta plays it right, they're going to draw the inexperienced left back, left wing of Chicago in tight, and then you're going to leave that right wing completely wide open. And you're going to give, Saba and Edwin plenty of space to run, plenty of acres with a picket fence and grass and the whole 9 yards to just have fun.
The can of white paint and the whole deal.
Yeah, the whole 9 yards.
Here,
so that's what I want to see. Yep.
Daniel, show me San de Flor. Okay, so I know before you go, you've got something to talk about coming up real soon. So go ahead and talk about what's coming up real soon.
Yeah, so She Believes Cup is coming up April 6th.
I've heard.
We are going to be doing a live show at the Nest on 4 bar again. We did it for the home opener. That's at the Signia Hotel, big glass hotel right next to the Benz.
Yep.
So if you're going, come after the match. We're going to be doing, after both matches, doubleheader. So we're looking to start at 6:30. That's not nailed down yet, but we'll say 6:30. Come hang out with us, and we're going to do that to recap the whole doubleheader for She Believes and lead into kind of a watch party / watch along type deal for the Atlanta United game that night.
There you go. Tyler Pilgrim at ATL Pilgrim at Scarves and Spikes on the 280 character app. Our buddies from Scarves and Spikes hanging out with us. And Tyler gets to hang out with us every Wednesday and sit there and go, why am I hanging out with John? Why does he drive me crazy?
Because I love it. It's fun. We have a great time.
Well, Wall Pass Wednesdays are about, my friend. Thanks for hanging out.
Thank you.
We'll catch up with you soon.
See y'all.
That is Tyler. And so Tyler is going to go continue drinking coffee out of his tin cup.